Hello there. In today's episode, we are going to create a new component. This is going to be a modal component. So, basically a pop-up that is shown on the screen whenever, user clicks a button to and they need to confirm something or they need to add additional information. A really useful component that people use a lot. So we just want to get it right. So I will be using this extension here, this package. It's called Vue.js modal. And we'll wrap it in our own implementation, obviously. Let's get started by installing it. So when we open our project, I'm just going to paste this command and wait for it to install. All right, so now we are going to follow this piece here because we are doing this in the next. So we are just going to create a new plugin with the modal. So in our UI, in our project, we are going to create a new folder called plugins. And inside of here, we'll create a modal.js file. And let me just paste what they have here. Okay, so that looks great. What I'm going to overwrite is I will change the component name. So it's like base modal. And now we can navigate to our next config. And here in the plugins section, we can add our config. So we'll just add plugins modal.js. Let's save this and go back to the page. Okay, so here in the introduction, we can see what is the usage of this package. So we can actually copy that. And create a new page here in our pages directory called modals.js. Let's just paste it here. Okay, so we need to adjust the name so it's base modal, because remember that we changed it here. I'm sorry, here. Okay, so when we go to this page, we can see that nothing happened. And it seems to be because this is called mount and not mounted. So let us fix that. Lynn did an oopsie here, so let me just adjust this. And now on this page, we can see that we are actually, loading our model. So that is great. The problem is that it doesn't look so good. So we need to make sure that, because, we'll have multitude of models. We'll have, one for adding our payment information, for example. We'll have one for canceling the account, one for creating a new resource in the app. We need to make sure that the default implementation of the model is as pretty as possible. So let's create an actual base model that we'll use. So to do that, in our UI directory, we are going to create a modal.view component. And here we'll define a template. We'll have a transition because we want the model to animate nicely, I'm sorry. And here we'll have our base model. And, we'll accept a slot for now. And let us try and, actually use it here. Okay, so we have our model. We need to import it. And now, first of all, we know that we need to pass a name. So we need to make sure that this is a required attribute, a required prop. So here we'll define our props. We'll require a name. It will be required true. Type will be a string. And that's it for now. So we need to pass this name here. Name equals name. Let's save this. Go back to our page, reload, and everything is working. So that's great. We did our first move in improving our model. Now we can basically think of a model. There will be a multitude of models, but the simplest one will have like a header, it will have a content, and then it will have a footer that will contain a button to, for example, save something or just close it. So let us actually split our model into those three sections. So first of all, we'll need some padding. So let's wrap this in a div. And here we could do something like, py3, px4, or even, you know what, let's do like py6, px8, flex call. Can add like space y. And here we would basically have, those three sections, right? We'd have one for the header, one for the content, and one for the footer. We just need to give them names. So the default one would obviously be the body. Let me just see one thing. Okay, yeah, there is an additional padding because we are rendering an empty div, but I think we'll handle this later. So now we basically want to make sure that this section, like the middle section, takes the entirety of the screen, and so that the footer is at the very bottom and the header is at the very top. So in order to do that, we need to make this full height, which we did. And now we just need to make this flex grow. And we can see that it worked. Our middle section takes the entirety of the screen. Okay. So in our footer, let me just, pass some stuff to the footer. We would pass a button that we haven't actually implemented yet, which is a shame. But for now, I'm just going to pass like, a simple button. There isn't really, a lot to think about. So like a close button, for example. So if this renders correctly, you can probably like increase the size a bit. And what I like to do is I like to put the buttons in the footer on the right side. So let us just do this. This would, let's just give it a flex and justify, and let's give it items center and space x4 in case, we add multiple buttons. So this seems to be working. Now, if we were to like duplicate it, but, make this one border primary, bg primary, text white, and, let's call it save. That looks okay. So what I don't love about this model is that it's like super not rounded. Like it's like super, it has a different style than what our app has. We just need to round it a teeny tiny bit. So if we go back here, we can probably just pass around that MD class. And will that do the trick? It won't, which is a shame. And it won't because it's overwritten by this class, apparently. What if we gave it an importance? Doesn't matter. Because we are giving the class here and not to the model itself. Okay, so that kind of stinks because we have to actually override this styling on the CSS level. But let me just grab this class here. And we can do, something like this. Or we can change it in our global scope, whatever you prefer. So we can do border radius like 6 pixels, I think is the MD. This looks better. Maybe 8. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not the designer. Let's say that this is fine. So now for the header, what I would do is, I would just accept the title. So maybe here, I'm sorry, in our header, we could do something like typography, which is a component that we have. Theme equals like h2, and here we would pass a title, and then we would have like p, and here we would have like description, or like a subtitle, or help text. I don't know. Let's go with title and subtitle for now. So we need to, accept them as props. So subtitle. Subtitle won't be required. It will be a string. The default will be an empty string. The title, though, will be required. So let's make it required true. Type string. So now we need to obviously pass them here. So the title would be, it wouldn't be a bound property. So let me just remove that. So let's call like create user would be the title, and then our subtitle would be fill all of the information and add a new user or something like that. So let's just save it. Let's refresh the page, and we can see that it did work. So this is pretty great. And the header would be used, if we want to add like anything else after, like besides this information. What we could also do is we could wrap this in another div. And here, use our base icon. And if somebody clicks on our icon, we would do modal hide name, basically. And this would be name equals X. Let's see how it looks. Okay, we just need to give it a flex, item center, justify between. If we save that, we should be pretty good. Not really. We could add like on click event here, so it actually works. Okay, that's great. This definitely isn't the prettiest thing that you can come up with, but once we have a button component, we can, improve this. For now, let's just give it a cursor pointer, so the user knows that it's clickable. And it actually doesn't work. That's interesting. Should we do like the bind address? Did it work now? Okay, it does work now. I think it was like problem with hot reload or something. But yeah, this looks pretty good. What we definitely want to do is we want to emit a couple of events that this library emits, right? So for example, they have a closed event. So on closed will just emit closed. We can pass along the event that was emitted. Can do the same for opened. I think the one that's like the most important is before opened. So this one is important because it will actually like trigger before the whole model is opened. So you have the chance to like fill the data and do an Ajax request if you want to. You know what? Let's remove this transition here. We are not going to like override the one that they have. Just not worth it. It's good enough. What I would do is there is one thing that we should really think about. So let's say that we have something that happens in the background that opens this model. Sometimes it's like easy to close it because whenever you click on the overlay, it closes the model. So this may be a smart choice to move it to a props. So let's define a closable. won't be required. By default, it will be true. So there is this prop here called click to close, where we can pass this parameter. And let me see if that works. And it seems to be working because we haven't passed the prop here. So if we do it, if we pass the closable as false, now we open the model, we can no longer close it by clicking on the background. We could also make it so, and these, to be honest, they could be totally separate props. I think it depends on your use case. But we could hide this button here if closable is false. Sorry, if the closable is obviously true, then we won't show this button here. So yeah, this seems to be working. So what we could actually do to like put a cherry on top is create our first model that actually makes sense. So we could call it like an onboarding model, or, you know, like a user greeting model, basically a model that we show the user once they enter the platform. So there is this website called StorySet that has a ton of like good enough illustrations that we could use. So let's just look for onboarding. And you know what? We can just grab this one. It's not really important. I will just paste it into our project. So in our static folder, we are just going to create a folder called illustrations. And, you know, here we could paste this SVG file. I will just create an examples directory. And here we can create like user rating model, that view. So let me just style it up really quick. What is important, and what I forgot to tell you, that we should also add a height of outer. This way, let me just remove it and show you the model here. So before we added this, you know, it was cropping at the height that they use as a default. After adding this, our height will actually, you know, scroll up to fill the whole height. And while this isn't the greatest use case of this model, because for like a greeting model, it should probably be centered and like, you know, there should be more wow factor. It's good enough for like a quick example of how we could utilize it. But yeah, the primary use case would still be probably adding and removing data. What's really cool about models is something that we will see in the next episode. So see you there.